Well, Clark Stork, the director of communications here with Golf Saskatchewan. We're going to go off the board a little bit. Normally, we've been talking to a lot of competitive golfers and a couple Hall of Famers, and maybe this guy does find himself in the Golf Hall of Fame at some point in the more maybe a builder's category. But Mr. Dick DeRyk of Yorkton can obviously play the game because he's got a couple holes in one, and that's we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But Mr. DeRyk, I know you've given a lot to the game of golf in your city of Yorkton there, and this is full circle because when I was a young broadcaster in 2007, I stepped into a Yorkton City Council meeting, my first night at GX94, and there's this guy sitting on council, and he was definitely not a yes man. He was ruffling feathers, and here we are 13 years later, so
Yep.
talking again. I think I'd probably talk to you then. But anyways, your story in the game of golf, and I know there's not much competitive, but been around it a long time.
Yeah, I think it was back in the mid '80s when I first got involved with the Saskatchewan Golf Association and with organizing tournaments. My recollection is that the first one we did in Yorkton, maybe ever, I really don't know, but the first one I was involved in was in the '80s, and I think it was the Saskatchewan Amateur Championship. And since then, we've hosted mid-ams, we've hosted juniors, we've hosted Future Links, we hosted National, the junior girls, and I think it was 2015. So we've hosted a fair number in Yorkton, and it was one of those things when they needed somebody to kind of organize it. I was there.
Yeah, that's great. Why don't you explain a little bit about why it's really important to be behind these events and bring other events, not just golf, but any event to a community. It just, I mean, there's spin-offs galore for sure.
There is. I mean, there's huge economic benefit, and obviously that's. I've been in business all my life, run businesses, so that's obviously a consideration. But I think it's also for golf tournaments. It's a way to promote the game. It's a way to get people involved. It's a way to show people that this is not just an elite game, which a lot of people still think it is. It's something that the community can host. It's good for everybody. It's fun to watch. People come out and watch the better golfers in Saskatchewan and sometimes nationally. I know when we had the junior girls there, there was a huge amount of interest, even among the golfers that normally wouldn't, go and watch young people play golf. But we have a couple of holes where some of us struggled to get it on in two, and they were hitting the ball over the bush and driving the green and on a par four, and these were young ladies that were small and not didn't look like the muscular guys that can hit that ball 300 yards. But it was incredible to watch, the skill that they displayed, and I think all of us kind of looked at that and said, "Whoa, this is really something to see on your home course." Uh, it's fun, and yeah, there are economic benefits, and that's a good thing too.
And the people you've met, obviously, coast to coast, I'm sure,
Yeah.
endless, and still probably communicate with them at some level today.
Well, there's a few guys that a few people we keep in touch with. I go back to the '80s when we did the amateur and the mid-ams, and one of the reasons I'm going up to the Lobstick, for the senior tournament is that the guys that played then at that time, the Jim Sissons and the Murray Osbornes and you know they still show up at these tournaments. So there's a few events that I like to go to because it's kind of like old home week, and meet a lot of guys that were you know in their prime at the time when they played in Yorkton, and still play a pretty good game of golf, in later years.
For sure. Yorkton Deer Park, a beautiful course, obviously a championship course. You guys have underwent some renovations. I talked to his name is escaping right now, but and the leader of your men's club was really behind hole
Yeah.
number 8. But before we talk about that, just that development and some history last week, just pump the tires of the Yorkton Deer Park Municipal Golf Course because it's one of Saskatchewan's best for sure.
You know what? People look at the scorecard and they say, "Oh well, short course, that's got to be easy, right?" It isn't. There's ups and downs. There's lots of bush. There's lots of places to get into trouble. The seventh hole, and we have a new green on the seventh hole. Um, Used to be, pretty much straight away to a flat green and probably the most level green on the golf course. Wherever you were on that green, you hit it straight at the hole. You didn't have to read anything into it. So now we have a new green that you have to bend it around a few trees to get there. Severe slope, undulating, bunkers all around. So that hole is totally different. The back nine, of course, was redone about 20 years ago. I think it was year 2000 that we put it into play. And the first major tournament on there was a Future Links tournament, Prairie Future Links. And now we have the new number 8, and it's part of an evolving development of the course. The back nine was done, the first hole was done, 7 is done, 8 is done now, and that leaves it open to do number 9 and a few other holes that need some work. It is not the simple course that it looks like on the scorecard. You need to play target golf on a lot of the holes. You need to put it in the right spot. And when I first started playing there back in the late '60s, the greens were all small and round and flat. None of that exists anymore, except for a few holes. So it's really developed into a very, very good golf course. It has spawned some pretty good young players in its time as well. Arden Knoll comes to mind. Kate Johnson now is playing some really good golf out of Deer Park, and I think they learned the game well on a course that looks easy but requires some pretty good skill to make your way around.
Yeah, as mentioned, I spent 3 years working there, and I've played a lot. So I love it, and still love
Yep.
going back. Still got lots of friends there. Hole 8. It's kind of the signature. You're looking over the
Yep.
hill, you got the
Yeah.
pond in front, the trees at the back. You got to be precise.
Yeah.
When you guys were going to go ahead with the renovation, there had to have been a little bit of pushback. You can't do anything about hole number 8, but it had issues, didn't it?
Yeah, it flooded in the spring. We've lost it. There's a few years where we lost it. It flooded, froze, and choked out the grass. And it was, I mean, it was a challenging hole because there wasn't a whole lot of room to play with. Between the bush and the water in front, you had to. And it was a signature hole in that when you drive into the golf course, come through the gate, you look to the left, and it's right there. But the issues with the water, that green being very hard to maintain because it was generally stayed very soggy. The new number 8 doesn't have. It has all the challenges, I'll tell you, of the old number 8, and hopefully none of the problems because everything is raised up. And because it's raised up, you need to hit the green there because if you're short, you're either in the bunker or you're off the rocks and into the water on the right-hand side, or you're in the bush on the left. So not to blow my own horn and that I got the hole in one there, but it takes a straight shot to get to that green and have a chance at a par.
So earlier on this year on social media, we see that there is a hole in one on number 8, and here I was thinking that this again, you'll have to fill me in on this lady's name because I don't have the social media in front of me right now, but she gets a hole in one. I'm thinking, oh, okay, so this is this hole 8, but then last week. Here's Alan Salzer, the head pro there, and obviously a friend of Golf Saskatchewan.
Yep.
history is made. Here's Dick DeRyk with his COVID hair and obviously looking very, very, sharp today. But you have the first one, and I know there's a story about a gentleman who saw both.
Yeah. The last hole in one on the old number 8 was Juanita Brown, and that was 2 weeks ago, about a week before they switched over. Her husband Lauren was there and saw her hole in one. Lauren was playing with me on Sunday morning. We have a group that goes out Saturday, Sunday mornings, and Lauren was. We actually had a threesome. He was with us, and saw the first one on the new number 8. So he witnessed both of them, which it's a bit of an oddity, I would think, with all the golfers that any of us could have been playing with at the time. So Lauren has that distinction, and I was I looked in the hole and I said, oh yeah, a hole in one, and he said, hey, we got to take some pictures. So gave him my phone. He took the pictures, and so yeah, he was witness to 2 history-making holes in one.
He's probably the most popular guy that people want to play with now around here. Yeah, I don't understand. Lauren doesn't have one on his own though either, does he?
I'm not sure. I don't know. But if that's what you heard, that may be so. Yeah. Well,
Wow.
there's a lot of golfers that don't have one on their own. So
there definitely is, yeah. But
yeah.
Don Kunkel, a very good friend of yours, our president, the owner of the Owl's Nest at the club, had told me when I was looking to get a hold of you, I called him and he said, "Yeah, Lauren doesn't have one on his own." So that's kind of paid him a little bit, but but you have more than one. This isn't your first.
No, this is my third. Go ahead. I had one. I had one 40 years ago on the old number 9, when the what is now the back 9 was the front 9, and number 9 was a par 3 coming up to the clubhouse. And I had one on that hole, and that's got to be 40 years ago. And then I had one last year. I was playing with a friend from Yorkton and a friend from Edmonton and a local fellow at the Okanagan Club, the Bear Course in Kelowna. And there's a par 3 there that's about 120 yards. I can't remember the number. And I had one there. And at the time I was saying, well, you know what, if that was 2019, if I'm getting one every 40 years, I'm really looking forward to the year 2059 because I'll be due for my third, right? And as it turned out, the third one came, this year. So now I'm thinking, well, you know what? If I don't get another one next year, I'm going to be really disappointed because obviously I'm getting one a year now, right? I mean, you got to carry on the tradition.
That's right, for sure. What has golf given you in your life?
To me, it's relaxation, it's self-discipline, it's friendship. I've golfed many places in North America, in the States and overseas, and when you play golf, everybody is equal. Every once in a while, somebody will say, generally, they ask, where you live. And if I'm playing down in the States, I tell them Saskatchewan, and there's this kind of blank look in their eyes. And then I tell them I'm straight north of North Dakota, and the blank look doesn't change. But very seldom does anybody ask, or are you curious about, what do these people do for a living? What's their social status? To me, golf is a great equalizer. We're all there to play the game, to have fun, companionship, and have some fun, and challenge yourself. And I've really enjoyed that about the game, and particularly the idea of because I've been very competitive in business and other aspects of life, but not in golf because I play it for relaxation. I play it for enjoyment. But it's a way of challenging yourself to do better. At one time, my handicap was down to 8. It's nowhere near there now. That's as low as I got. But you're always trying to better yourself. And I think that's the kind of thing that I enjoy, and that I think is a good thing for young people to get involved in. That it requires discipline, and it requires some dedication, to improve yourself. And those are good kind of life lessons that I think are good for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, it was great to reacquaint last year at the Future Links with you, Mr. DeRyk, and we got to watch a great young Saskatchewan golfer, Josh
Yep.
Nagy, have a great moment in Saskatchewan as he continues his career down in Division One school now. And we congrats on the hole in one, congrats on the success of the Deer Park and the hole number 8, and we hope to see you back on the whether it's the Saskatchewan circuit next year or something Golf Canada wise in the future.
If they need some help, I'm sure I'll be able to. If I'm still standing on 2 feet, I'll be helping.